Hi, my name is Joey Flores. I just want to give you guys a brief testimony of a sad time in my life. It was a dark time. I grew up in a loving home, single mom. There were three brothers and one sister, one adopted sister and one adopted brother. And we were a loving family, and everything was normal. I went to school. My mom worked, and she studied, and she went to college, took care of us, raised us, and a lot of times my sister took care of us, and thank God for that. She was there for us. But at an early age, at 13, I started wandering and experimenting in the streets. I started smoking weed, started drinking, started hanging around the wrong crowds, and I took to the streets. And I remember it was 2 weeks before my 14th birthday. I got into a bad argument with my mom, and eventually I left the house. I was out of my house at 2 weeks before my 14th birthday, which I thought was great because of all the freedom. And I figured now I can do whatever I want, when I want, and how I want at 14. And I took to the streets. It was at first gratifying because of the freedom, but there was a lot of sad times. There was a lot of drugs involved, a lot of drinking, a lot of illegal things that I did that I'm not proud of, but did happen. I eventually moved into a home that was owned by a drug dealer, and part of my pay was to actually run drugs for him because of my young age. He figured if I got caught, the worst case scenario would be in juvenile detention, and he would be looking at a lot of prison time. And but I'm still thankful I was at that time for that opportunity. It gave me somewhere to live, and I lived there for about 3 months. And after 3 months, I remember one Friday morning, I left to go see my sister actually, and that Friday morning, the house was raided, and they took him, his wife, and a couple of other people away. They got sentenced in anyway, so the house was taken away, and at that time I had nowhere actually to live, and I was homeless. And I wandered around the streets. I did what I had to do to make money. I sold drugs, and I did different other things, and stole cars, and just the stuff, whatever I had to do to survive, basically. And I remember a friend of mine saying, "Listen, if you want," and it was from a good family, and he said, "If you want, you can stay in my basement. You have to hide from my parents because if they find out that you're there, they're gonna call the Department of Children's Services or even the cops." So for 6 months, I literally lived in the basement, and his parents never knew. And I remember one Sunday morning, I kind of overslept because you know when you're in the street, you sleep with one eye open and the other one closed. So I remember his mother coming down, and I hear the footsteps, and I kind of overslept. Usually I was out of there by 7 o'clock in the morning, and she did find me there, and she was startled, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And I lied to her, and I said, "Listen, I'm just crashing for the night in the basement," and his name was Marion, and Marion said, for a night. So she brought me upstairs, and they spoke to me, and they asked me, why was I sleeping in the basement. I kind of explained it somewhat to them, and I remember they're saying, "Why don't you contact your mother?" And I said no, because obviously I didn't want to go back home because of the freedom I had. But yeah, so I took to the streets again, and I told her I would contact her again, and I never did. And so I roamed around, and I remember walking in places where it wasn't safe, but it was safe for me because I knew the streets, and I stayed in buildings that that were abandoned at times, and it was hard to sleep. And I stole food from supermarkets and even convenience stores, and just to eat. And I would go over a friend's house and take showers and stuff, and stay clean. But I always found a way to make money on the streets, and that's what I what I did. I remember one time an older, his name was Pee Wee. That's a street name. His name was Pee Wee. Older guy, drug dealer, and he told me, he said, "Listen, kid, you seem like a good kid, and the streets are not for you." And that spoke to me at one time, because I came from a loving home, not a perfect home, but a loving home, and I always wanted to go home, but I always thought it was too late. But God had a plan. God had a big plan for me, and through those dark times, I mean, eventually it led to, some prison time. It led to, bad relationships. It led to a lot of bad things, a lot of dark places. But God always had His hand on me, and I thank Him for that. About 4 years ago, I came to the Lord and I gave my life to Christ, and it's been a blessing. It hasn't been easy, as you know. The walk is not easy, but it's rewarding because it's glorious to Him. So I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm thankful for the Lord's mercy and His grace, because He's always protected me, and I thank you, Lord, for this. And I just want to read a verse from Samuel's 2 Samuel chapter 22nd, verse 17. It says, "He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters." And that's what I feel He's done with me. I feel that out of all the dark places, sleeping in abandoned buildings and just being in the street for almost 3 years and seeing a lot of ugly, dark things, He pulled me out of that, and He let me experience that. So I may be here today to give a living testimony of where God brought me out of and where He has me.